Shalom Aleichem. We are learning the Kli Yakar on the Parashat. This week's Parashat Vayera. Parashat Vayera has a lot of fundamental things that happen. Important episodes, important events that really lay the groundwork for all of history to follow after that. We're just gonna, of course, we only have a limited time. We are going to look at one event. And that event is when Lot is in Sodom, and the angels, two of the angels that came to visit Abraham, namely Gabriel and Raphael, they go down to Sodom, and they go down to Sodom to fulfill God's plan to destroy the place. But first, of course, they wanted to save Lot because of the merit of Abraham Avinu, that Lot was connected to Abraham. Abraham cared about Lot. Lot was also going to be the seed of the Mashiach, as we know, after what happens with him and his daughters, that eventually leads to the birth of Moab, one of his sons, and Moab is from him. Moab makes a nation, and from him, from the Moabi people, comes the mother of, the great-grandmother, I should say, of David, which is Ruth. Ruth converts to Judaism, and from her eventually comes David. And from David will come Ezrat Hashem, the Mashiach, very soon in our days. Nevertheless, what happens on the way there is Lot is hesitant. He doesn't want to leave. Right? Lot is not as perfect as Abraham. He learned some things from Abraham Avinu, says Rashi and other people. When the angels came to visit him, they appeared like Arabs, don't forget, and the Arabs had dust on their feet, and the dust on their feet was one of the things that people worshipped. So it was a subject of Avodah Zarah, of idol worship. When Abraham met them, he told them, "Please wash your feet first, then come in and I'll take care of you." When Lot met them, he brought them in first. He fed them and he gave them a night to sleep, and then before they left, he said, "Please wash your feet." So Lot had some idea of what Abraham taught him, but the priorities were mixed. And that's why Lot was hesitant to leave, right? There was a famous word in the Parashat when they wanted to take him out. It says, "Vayit mahmah." Hard word to pronounce. You have to be Baal Koreh to pronounce it properly. It's related to the word Vayit mahmeah, which appears later in the Torah, which talks about the matzot. When they were leaving Egypt, it says they didn't have time for the bread, the dough, to remain long enough to become bread, and rather it stayed as crackers, it stayed as unleavened, I should say, matzah. And here the same word is used to describe Lot. Vayit mahmah means he delayed. He was stuck. He wanted to remain there in Sodom because of all of the investments that he had, right? The real estate, the assets, animals, business. He was doing well, and he didn't want to leave all that. He was very tied to his physicality. That is a theme that we're going to explore here. That a person's tie to his monetary wealth and physicality can really be his downfall, and it can hold him back from achieving what he really is here on this earth to achieve. And that is a connection, a spiritual connection with his Creator, and that is a self-refinement to the best of one's ability. That is what we have to do. But money can get in the way of that. And on that word Vayit mahmah, when he delayed to leave, there's a very unusual and special musical note, melodic note, a trop, so if you will. Right? We have the ta'amim mikra. These are the musical notes that the Baal Koreh has to read them in such a way when he reads the Torah. And one of them, a rare one, is called a shalshelet. It looks like a zigzag line. Shalshelet literally means a chain, a zigzag line like that. And it appears over that word Vayit mahmah, and it appears only in a few places in the whole Torah. This is one of them. And the teaching is that whenever that appears, again, the ta'amim are revealing deep secrets, right? The Zohar Kadosh says the ta'amim are the highest part of the word. The most spiritual part of the word is the ta'amim, the neshama. That's the neshama of the word, right? The neshama has three parts. The Zohar Kadosh says that the word itself, the letters are the base, the most base part of the word, which corresponds to the most base part of the soul, which is the nefesh. That's the lowest part of the soul. Even animals have a nefesh, so it keeps them alive. It's the life force. Then the higher level above that is the ruach. Ruach is the middle part of the soul. That corresponds to the nekudot, the vowels of the word. And then the highest part, the neshama, which lives up here in the tefillin area of the head, the highest, intellectual part of the soul. There are higher parts, but those are hidden, and without getting into that. The neshama corresponds to the ta'amim, the melodic trup, the singing of the word in the Torah. And so those things teach you a very big depth. So when you see the shalshelet, that zigzag line over the word beit mahmah, it means that a person, it comes to describe when a person is very much troubled with a decision and he's unable to make a decision. He's going back and forth. He's having an inner conflict between the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara inside himself, back and forth, a moral inner conflict. That's what it means, and that's why it's shaped in this back and forth fashion, because there's a back and forth going on in his head. We speak a lot about this in a very important chapter in our book, the Chatzar Yosef, chapter 14. If you want to look more into that, if you're interested in the book, please email me, yosefzayrov@gmail.com. We can arrange a copy for you. But we really reveal a lot of deep things about that there as well. But that's what was happening in Lot's mind. He was having a back and forth struggle. And that's why that word, that shalshelet, appears there. Nevertheless, they took him against his will. They grabbed him, the angels grabbed him, his wife, his two daughters, his two unmarried daughters, right? The married daughters were staying back over there with their husbands. Their husbands did not let them leave. And they were grabbed and they were taken out to the entrance of the city. Let me just find the piece here, Vayera, so we see the actual holy words. Vayera. Here. They told them something very specific. The angels told them, they gave him instructions when they took him out. Here we go, let's see. Vayotzi'uhu. They took him outside, they put him outside the city. And that was as the angels took them out, outside of the city. And he said, save your life, forget your monetary money. Worry about your life for a second. What's more important? Do not gaze behind you. That was the instruction. Do not stand in the entire valley. Escape, run away to the mountain, lest you be swept away by the destruction. What mountain? The mountain was where Abraham Avinu lived. Right, that was where Lot and Abraham separated. Abraham stayed close to him over the mountain overlooking Sodom. That's where Abraham was praying for Sodom, over the mountain. They told him to go back to the mountain. What does the Midrash explains? They told him to go back to Abraham. Abraham is your only reason why you got this far. Go back to him. And then, without getting into it, but the story continues, Lot negotiated with him. He didn't want to go back to Abraham. He said, can you just save this one small city, Tzor, the smaller city out of the five? Because it was like 5 boroughs, so to speak, in that one area. It was Sodom, Sodom, Gomorrah, Admat Tzvuyim, and Zoar. Sodom, it was known by Sodom, like kind of like Leavdil, New York City. There's 5 boroughs, right? And everything that together is known as New York, but there's 5 separate boroughs. Same thing over here. Everything together was known as Sodom, but there was 5 separate boroughs. And the angel said, yeah, fine, if that's what you want. They ended up sparing one city, Tzor, and they sent Lot over there. The Kli Yakar wants to analyze on verse 17. This is chapter 19. This is in the book of Bereshit, verse 17. Al tebit acharecha, said the angels, do not look behind you, do not gaze behind you. Lefi shelot ve'ishto hayu mitzta'arim al shelo hotzilu gam et kol mamunam. Since Lot and his wife were very much troubled by the fact that they weren't able to save their money, Lechach ne'emar, that's why it says, Vatabet ishto me'acharav, vatahi nesiv melach. Later on, verse 26, Pasuk Chavav, what does it say? Vatabet ishto me'acharav. His wife did gaze behind him. His wife looked back, Lot's wife. What happened to her famously? Vatahi nesiv melach. She became a statue of salt. What's the connection, says the Kli Yakar? Me'achareh me'be'elah lehabit. Another question on this verse. When the verse talks about Lot's wife, looking back, it says, Vatabet ishto me'acharav. Direct translation, again, every word is male or female in Torah. What's the translation? And his wife looked behind him. That's the translation. And his wife looked behind him. Everyone thinks, and everyone reads it as, and his wife looked behind her. Me'achareha. Behind her. That's what seemingly it should say. That's what the Kli Yakar is asking. Why doesn't it say that? The fact is, it doesn't say that. It says me'acharav, which means she looked behind him. What does it mean behind him? It says over here, if you want to say it's like Rashi who explained, שנעשת נציב מלח לפי שחטאה במלח שלא נתנה לעני. If you want to say the reason why she became a statue of salt is because it was a measure for measure punishment, because she was stingy and she did not give salt to the ani, to the pauper, the poor person who asked her for salt. So that's what Rashi says. If that's so, says Kli Yakar, lama ne'inash davka b'pa'am hazot. Why was she then punished at this moment when she looked back at the city? She could have been punished before, right at the moment when she didn't give the salt. Why do you have to wait till now, till she looks behind them? What's the connection with looking behind them, their money, and the salt? Ella, rather, lefiach she'achshav nitzta'ara al ibud mamuna. He says, the Quran says right now was the pristine moment, the perfect moment to punish her for that, for not giving the salt. Why? Because right now, she was troubled and worried by the fact that they couldn't take their money with them. So what? Vehibita b'ma she'yiyeh acharei mot ba'alah. And when it says that she looked behind him, me'achorav can mean behind him, but it can also mean from after him. What will be after him? Ahar means behind, it also means after. So what does it mean? She said she was looking at what's going to be after him, after Lot. What does that mean? Zeu she'amar me'acharav ki amrash. She thought to herself, she'ba'ala lo yash'ir acharav ma'umma. That since her husband's wealth was all being destroyed in Sodom, since they couldn't take it with them, therefore what's going to be after him? Which means if he dies and she's going to be a widow later on, what is he going to guarantee her with? What assets is she going to get? Right? Because that's how it works. When a woman becomes a widow, in the ketubah, in halakha, there is a guarantee for her. There's a certain payment to be given to her, so that she's not left with nothing financially. But here, since so it was all being destroyed in Sodom, that's what it means. She said when she said she looked after him, she said, which means she was thinking, what's going to be after him? My husband is poor now. He's worthless. I can't get my payment. The whole world is being destroyed behind him, and she's thinking about her money. She's not going to have anything to collect a payment from. Therefore, this gazing back was a reminder for this sin of stinginess. Right? Just like over here, she's being stingy, thinking about money. Also over there, when she didn't give the salt, she was being stingy. Because the attribute of din, of justice in Shamayim, it prosecuted her, so to speak. It brought up a case against her, and it said, "Lo dai shelo asta min mamonat tzedakah shenishmela lemelach." Not only did she not give tzedakah when she was supposed to give, and tzedakah itself is compared to salt, as we shall see. Al derech, like it says, "Melach mamon chaser, v'hata enehem tzara, gam beorchim," and they were stingy with their guests. Also, she was stingy against the guests, very stingy. Meaning, when the angels first came to visit them, Lot's house in Sodom, before they destroyed Sodom, what does it say? Ki matzot afa, because he baked matzot. Mashma hu v'lo hi. That means Lot was baking the matzot, not her. Usually, baking was a woman's forte. I don't want to say it's her job. Anyone can bake, right? But it was a woman's skill, and it was her very prestigious contribution to taking care of the guests, to bake. Just like when they came, right? When the angels first came to Abraham, there's a direct pasuk where Abraham says to his wife, "Please go bake, knead, lushi ba'asirukot. Please go knead with a K and make cakes." Why cakes? He was making matzot because it was the time of Pesach. That's another question altogether. How can it be Pesach if the Exodus didn't happen yet? That's a deep question. But the bottom line is, we saw Abraham told Sarah to bake here. However, Lot's wife didn't bake. It says he baked, which means she didn't want to bake. She was a sodomite, according to some. opinions, and therefore she was brought up and raised with the ideology that guests are a bad thing. We don't do anything for guests. Therefore his wife was sinning. Because of this, within this great struggle and destruction, what was happening, she was still worried about her money. She wasn't a person to give tzedakah. That's why she became a pillar of salt. Why? Because of a certain thing it says in Masechet Ketubot. Let's open it up. Masechet Ketubot, Samech Vav Amud Bet. It says an interesting story. I'll bring you as a side note here. It says the secret to preserving one's wealth, preserving money. Let's see what it says. Let me just find it here 1 second. I believe it was Samech Vav Amud Bet here. There was a story. Maaseh, an incident happened, but Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the leader of the Jewish people at the time. Shaya rochev al hamor, he was riding on his donkey. He was leaving Yerushalayim, and it was a very troublesome time. His students were walking behind him. Ra'a riva achat, he saw a young woman. Sha'ayta malaketet shi'urim miben galalei behemtan shel arba'im. She was collecting leftover morsels of food from amongst the excrement of the animals that belonged to the Arabs. She was rummaging for food. Once she saw him, she saw Rabban Gamliel ben Zakkai, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, riding on a donkey. Nit'atfa b'sa'ara, she covered herself up in her clothing, in her scarf. And she covered her hair, I should say. Ve'amda lefanav, and she stood before him. Amra lo, she said to him, Rabbi, my master, my rabbi, parnaseni, please give me parnasa, sustain me. She's asking for tzedakah. Amalai said to her, Biti, my daughter, Mi'at, who are you? Amra lo, she said to him, Bat Naktimon ben Gurion ani. I am the daughter of a great man. Daughter of a man called Naktimon ben Gurion. We spoke about him in our Yosef lectures as well, from chapter 8. He was one of the rich men who sustained Yerushalayim. There's a famous story about him, Masechet Ta'anit. He was very, very rich and big tzaddik. For him, God brought the clouds and brought down a lot of rain for him. Amala, and this is his daughter. Amala, he said to her, Biti, my daughter, Mamon shel bet avich hechan. Where did the money from your father's house go? We didn't get anything out of it? Hechan alach. Amala lo, she said to him, Rabbi, my master, lo kaden matlin matla b'Yerushalayim. Don't the people know the following saying in Yerushalayim? What's the saying? What do people say? Melach mamon chayser. Salting money, lacking. That's literally the translation. What does it mean, salting money, lacking? Says Rashi explains. If you want to salt money, what does it mean salt? Salt was the preservative. If you had meat, right, there's no refrigerators at the time. You salted it a lot, and maybe you dug up a hole in the ground, you put it in there. Keep it cool. But salt was the main thing to keep it from getting infected. Salt was the preservative. So she's saying, the saying was that if you want to preserve your money, so you don't lose money, you don't lose riches and assets, what do? Hayser. You deduct. What does it mean deduct? It means tzedakah. You have to give charity. Give a percentage away. And you'll see that that's going to actually, paradoxically, as we all know, the famous teaching is, it is going to replenish your money more and more so. That's how God created the world. That's what God says in the prophet Micha, I believe it is. Famous verses over there where God says, test me if you want. This is how it works. You give to the guy, you get it back. Chesed. Some say chesed. Some say instead of chesed, take the resh out and put a daled. It means chesed. which means you do kind things with your money, which is another word for tzedakah. Bottom line is, you give tzedakah, you preserve your money. But look at the interesting way she's describing it. She's calling it salting your money, right? Salting your money. And that's the connection that Kli Yakar wants to bring over here. That why did she get punished with salt, Lot's wife? Why did she become a pillar of salt? Because of this saying. She didn't salt her money, which means she didn't give tzedakah. She was stingy. She was a sodomite. She didn't want to give salt to the poor person at the time. She didn't want to bake for the guests. She was stingy. And that's why she herself became, as midah k'neged midah, a pillar of salt. As for this story in Ketubot, let's just read the story just for completion's sake. Where's the money of your father-in-law? You got married to a rich person too. Where's he? Where's his money? Amrala, she said, this one, make that one lose. Which means just like my father lost money, my father-in-law lost money. Rashi explains because my father-in-law was a guarantor for all the loans of my father. So if my father went under, since my father-in-law was a guarantor, he also went under and lost all his money. Amrala, then Rabban Yochanan Mazgai said to her, no, she said back to him. She said to him now again. She said to him, Rabbi, don't you remember how you signed my ketubah when I got married? Amar lahen l'talmidav. Rabban Yochanan Mazgai turned around to the students and he said to them, Zachur ani, I remember when I signed her ketubah. Zayrov, this woman, and I used to say that the money that was guaranteed in this ketubah by her husband that she was marrying was 1,000 gold coins, million gold coins. Extremely rich these people were. From the father's house. Regarding what she was going to get from her. Besides what she was also going to get from her father-in-law's house. And she lost it all. They all lost it all. Rabban Yochanan Zakai cried and he said, V'amar, Ashrechem Yisrael, fortunate are you Israel. Bizman she'osin tzorno shel makom, because at the time when you do the will of God, en kol umah v'lashon sholetet bahem, no one and no nation can rule you or touch you. Bizman she'en osin tzorno shel makom, but at the time when you don't do God's will, Musrin, then you are handed over biyad ummah shefela, to a lowly nation, that Arab nation at the time. V'lo biyad ummah shefela, and not only just to their hand, ella biyad behemtan, to the hand of the animals shel ummah shefela, of this nation. Remember, she was rummaging through the animals' waste of that nation. It says a very important point. I'll just say it further. Naktimon ben Gurion lo amad tzedakah. The Gemara says, hold on a second. Naktimon ben Gurion was a huge tzaddik. He was super rich. You tell me he didn't give tzedakah? You tell me that's why? Because remember, when he asked her where your money went, she said, oh, don't you know the saying that you have to salt the money, which means you have to give tzedakah? Which is implying that her father didn't give tzedakah. But it can't be. The Gemara says, we're talking, he was a big tzaddik. What do you mean he didn't give tzedakah? How did he lose his money? Says the Gemara, but doesn't it say in a Braita, they used to say about him, about Naktimon ben Gurion, that when he used to leave from his house to the Bet Midrash to go learn, they used to lay out a silver garment, a carpet, I guess, for him to walk on. And then once he finished walking and he got to his destination of the Bet Midrash, went inside, the poor people would come, and they would fold up this precious, expensive silk garment, ma'harav, behind him, and they used to go take it and sell it and live off that. Every time he went back and forth, a new silk garment was placed before him. Unbelievable. So of course he gives tzedakah. Just that. This is like just that. Imagine other situations where he gave. Some say lichvodohu de'avad. Some say he only did it for his own honor. Some say, however, some say that really, yes, he gave tzedakah. That counts as tzedakah. But what he should have done, he did not do. Because it says, like the people say, again, we learn, sometimes you could learn deep things from the people's sayings. The Gemara brings it here, another saying. What do we learn from the people? Lufum gamla shihana. According to the camel is the burden. Very important lesson and a big theological lesson in the whole Torah. What is that? According to your capabilities, according to how much you can carry, according to your talents and your potential that God created you with, that is the burden that you're judged upon. Did you fulfill that? Like Timon, yes, he gave a lot of tzedakah just through that one incident of the silk. But the fact of the matter is, he was so rich, he could have gave so much more. He didn't give as much as he was supposed to give. And because of that, he lost it all. And his poor wife, miskin, daughter, suffering like this. The point is, not only with tzedakah, but with any part of your life, any talent that you have, you're expected to put your full effort to carry the burden that you were designed and to carry, that you're able to carry. That's what it is. That's the depth over here. So with that said, we learned a lot over here. We learned a lot about tzedakah, about Lot and his wife, what happened. B'ezrat Hashem, we should understand that everyone was created with God-given skills. And God wants to see those skills be put to action. We should be able to do that, and we should do it, B'ezrat Hashem, fully. B'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen.